Hi, folks. I'm Pete Lane. Welcome to Blind Abilities. We have a very special guest on our podcast today. Let's meet Donna Jodhan.
I have decided to rebrand myself as a sight loss coach. I'm in the process of reorganizing my website, DonnaJodhan.com, to reflect this. I will be using my vast knowledge and experience as an author, entrepreneur, and advocate.
Rebranding herself as a sight loss coach with a long list of credentials and a unique perspective on sight loss.
I think what is needed right now is that we need to give offerings to those with sight loss, especially now during the COVID era. It's even more important for them to believe and to feel that, yes, I have a sight loss, but I can definitely deal with it and overcome it.
And did I mention that Donna has a unique perspective on sight loss? She was born with very little vision, but regained her vision later in life.
I think what I left behind when I got a whack of vision was fear.
And then lost it again.
But then I lost almost all of it to a retinal detachment. So I'm back on the other side of the fence again.
But Donna brings other things to the table as well.
I decided to develop Detective DJ and the Crime Crushers. That's the title of my audio mystery series.
And she has advice for prospective authors.
I would say anybody who loves to write, go out there and try, because you never know what will happen.
She's an advocate for the blind.
I realized I could not apply for jobs on the Canadian government websites. It was very, very challenging.
And she fought a long, hard legal battle to effect much-needed changes. But now she's handing off the baton, issuing the challenge.
This time, I'm not going to purposely participate in this. I would like to see others do it. It's time for others to step up to the plate.
Laying down the gauntlet.
The changing of the guard.
Definitely. It's time for the youngsters to move forward. It's their future.
So now let's join Jeff Thompson in the Blind Abilities studio and his guest, Donna Jodhan.
Welcome to Blind Abilities. I'm Jeff Thompson. In the studio today, we have Donna Jodhan, an author, an advocate, and someone who is rebranding themselves, has a lot of experience to draw from. Donna, welcome to Blind Abilities.
Thank you for having me, Jeff, and glad to be here.
Now, you got quite a repertoire there. Author, you're an advocate, you've had major legislation passed in Canada, you've done many things, and now you're talking about rebranding, reorganizing. I've seen your website, and it's just loaded with blogs and places to go, books, all sorts of stuff. Why don't you tell us a little about yourself and what this is all about?
Well, I think it's time for me to rebrand myself. I think so far I've lived a very rich life of having had opportunities to be an author, an advocate, an entrepreneur, and I've done a bit of this and a bit of that, and I've had a lot of people I've met over the years that have helped me to get where I am today. But I think I have a bag full of knowledge and experience that I would like to use to help others, especially those with sight loss, to become more comfortable in their new type of world. And as I keep reiterating, sight loss is not just for the senior. Sight loss can affect anybody, from the newly born to the one who encounters a fluke accident or someone who is medically affected. Sight loss does not discriminate. And I feel that I have enough knowledge and a bit more to help others be more comfortable. So I decided to start rebranding myself. My website is going to be reorganized. That's www.donnajodhan.com. I will be reorganizing it using those 4 main topics on my website: my authorship, my advocacy as an entrepreneur and as an audio mystery writer, and I will be showing how these can be used to coach people. Moreover, I would be also giving examples of those who are living successfully with sight loss and some of those who can attest to having met and be friends with those with sight loss. I think it's important for me to show my potential clients and customers that there are others living with sight loss, so don't be afraid, and that there are others out there who have seen others living with sight loss. This is why I am rebranding myself, because I believe that I can use my vast knowledge to help them.
And what does the rebrand look like? What is the title? What is the name?
Coach. It's just going to be Coach. I want to make it as simple as possible so as not to lose a potential visitor or reader of my website. It's made simple. It's broken down into very simple sections so that they can understand that I'm a person who has the knowledge and experience, who has experienced quite a lot, and who now is going to take that experience to help them out.
Well, that's great, because someone that is just experiencing sight loss or doesn't know what they don't know, it's nice to be able to tap into that resource. I mean, I remember when I first lost eyesight, I didn't know where they kept the blind. I didn't know anything. I was just curious. And so having a resource, a wealth of knowledge that you have would be great for someone. Good for you.
The other thing, too, I would share with you is that I was born with very little vision, but when I was a teenager, I got a whack of vision through a cornea transplant. So my whole world opened up to me. I was on the other side of the fence from having gone with very little to a heck of a lot. But then in 2004, I lost almost all of it to a retinal detachment. So I'm back on the other side of the fence again. So that is another reason why I think I can make a very good vision loss coach.
From both sides. There you go.
Yeah.
That must have been quite an experience for you to all of a sudden have that window open up to sight.
It was.
Wow.
I can't describe how it was. It was amazing.
And then retreating back into something that you already knew a little bit about.
Yes.
So you kind of have that experience revisited. So when someone else is going through it, you can relate to what they're going through.
I think I can, yes.
And what is some of the main things that people who are recently losing eyesight, what do they ask for first?
A lot of them ask for assistance in helping them reacquaint themselves with their kitchen. You know, they want to be able to cook and clean. And one of the other things we have found is that a lot of them think, well, you know, I've lost my sight, but I am petrified to go out there and socialize with my friends. And I'm saying, but why? And they're saying, well, when we go to a restaurant, we're afraid to make a mess on our plates because we don't know where the food is. And how do we get to know this? How do we cut our meat? How do we go about finding our, utensils and our wine glass and stuff like that? And here is where my experience and that of my team will come in to help them understand, hey, you don't have to be afraid. We'll show you how. We'll give you techniques, and soon you'll be on your way.
These are what I call soft skills, something that even transition age students who may have been living at home and then now it's time to go off to college and stuff where they might have to experience that as well. So picking up these soft skills, these social skills as well, is a great thing to have.
Yes. My dad always used to say to me, one of your objectives is to fit in, not stick out. So once they have these tools, they can fit in more easily and not feel as if they're being constantly scrutinized and constantly watched. I think that's the one thing most people with sight loss are afraid of. They don't want people to be looking at them to make sure that they're doing the right thing. They want to be able to interact comfortably, easily, and freely so that people even forget that they have sight loss. Yeah,
just to blend in, just to be part of the group, to hang out and not stand out, like you said. So how does someone get involved with you? How does that process start then?
Well, right now, because our website is being reorganized, you can still go there, but there's nothing there right now on my rebranding. I'm hoping to have all this in place by March the 1st. But in the meantime, they can contact me in two ways. They can write to me at Donna Jodhan, DonnaJodhan, one word, at gmail.com, or they can give me a call at 416-491-7711, and I would be pleased to return their call, and I would be standing by to respond to their emails.
Donna, what do you believe is more important, confidence or skills?
Jeff, I think they both play almost an equal part in one's daily ability or in one's toolkit. I think it's one thing to have the skills, but if you don't have the confidence, it doesn't quite make the finish line. And on the other hand, if you have the confidence, but you don't have the skills, you may say, okay, I'm going to go out there and catch the world by the tail and keep going. But if you don't have the skills as to how to do it, then your toolkit needs a bit of tuning up. And I think both components are necessary.
I agree with you. That's a question that training schools may ask someone. Some people always take one side or the other just for the point of flushing it out, and you did a great job there. And I didn't even warn you there was going to be a test, so that's pretty good.
Thank you for telling me now.
I hear you cook a lot.
I do.
How do you do your recipes?
I'm going to admit something to you. For one thing, I have a ton load of recipes that I have collected from a lady who calls herself Mama Peach. Her name is Melanie, and I don't remember her last name at the present time. But I have tons and tons of recipes that I can offer to persons with sight loss and show them how they can use these recipes to help themselves. But for me personally, I love throwing things together and see what happens.
I think a lot of people have a fear of fire, the stove and all that stuff.
Yeah.
What do you suggest someone to get? What tools should they get when they're starting out in the kitchen?
There are quite a lot of different gadgets available, and even using the mainstream pots and pans is definitely something that they should consider. It's a matter of instilling confidence into them and saying, it may not be for a blind person, and I have a lot of things in my kitchen that are mainstream, but let's show you how to use it. Let's show you that, with careful planning and careful organizing, you can use it too. I think the trick here is planning and understanding how things work and knowing that once you have those tools in your toolbox, you can do it. It's just a matter of figuring out what is best for the person. And I will reiterate here that everybody is different. Some people are more afraid of the fire than others. Some people will not touch it, period. Well, okay, if you don't want to touch it, let's look at other options for you.
Marking air fryers, microwaves, oven. I've seen egg boilers. You just set the eggs in a container, add water, plug it in, and ding, they're done.
That's right. I use something called egg pod. You just put your eggs in, cover it with water, stick it in the microwave, and leave it for 6 to 7 minutes. Done.
There you go.
There are things out there that one can use to get around fear or get around, I can't do this because I can't see, or I can't do this because I don't know how much time, stuff like that. So I believe that there are always ways to get to where you want to get.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be that technical to do stuff. I like using stuff that you already have, maybe marking it a little bit for reference. People usually don't have 8 spots on their countertops to put all these different machines. No. So it's nice to have some skills so you can do stuff. I like that. And gaining them, just contact DonnaJodhan.com.
Thank you very much.
With low vision, when you were younger, you must have had your place. You know what I mean? People knew you as someone with low vision. And then you got vision, and that changed everything.
Yes.
What did you leave behind as soon as you got vision?
What I left behind when I got a whack of vision was fear. I realized that I could do a lot more with my new vision, so I became more emboldened. I was more daring to do things. Like I said, my whole world opened up for me, especially in the sporting arena. I became more active in things like, ice skating and skiing. I just had a whack of confidence, and I left fear behind. And I used my newfound vision to improve my toolbox and to put more tools into that toolbox.
You do some writing of some mysteries.
Yes.
I saw those, and I was wondering, how did that come about? Talk me through that.
Well, I always had a very fertile and furtive imagination as a child, and that was fueled by my mom and dad and my granny, who loved to make up stories and tell them to me at bedtime. One of the things I always wanted to do was to write mysteries. About 10 years ago, or maybe a bit longer than that, I decided, what? It's time to put these things into writing. So I decided to develop something called Detective DJ and the Crime Crushers. That's the title of my audio mystery series. I wrote 3 seasons of these, plus a 12-day of Christmas box set.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, you know what, I really enjoyed doing this. And my imagination simply went to work. I used as much experience as I could from my own childhood and by talking to others as well. And I put this together, and Accessible Media Inc. bought a lot of these from me. I wrote and produced these mysteries. I put them up into an online store on my website. And I've been very fortunate to sell quite a lot of those. A lot of opportunities came out of these audio mysteries. I had people asking me to play Mrs. Claus at certain functions and things like that. So unexpected opportunities came out of this hobby. I would call it a hobby of mine.
What advice would you give to someone who has that desire to write but maybe stuck or doesn't think they can do it? What finally got you to put your words to paper?
I am not sure what finally got me to do it, but I'm just so happy that I did it because I kind of thought, I wonder if I could help others to enjoy easygoing listening. I was convinced that I'm going to go try this thing out. And also, in addition to the audio mysteries, I ended up writing mind-bending games and mystery games for dinner mystery evenings. I would say anybody who loves to write and who has a furtive imagination and who wants to try, go out there and try, because you never know what will happen.
That's great. So many people sit and think about writing, and you did it.
And I think it's another way for persons with sight loss. It's another avenue for them to think about. It's another way for them to say, hey, you know what? I like to write. And if I have sight loss, that doesn't prevent me from writing. It's something that anybody can do.
You do a lot of advocacy work.
I have done a lot, and I'm cutting back right now, yeah.
The rebranding.
Yeah.
But it all started out about 10, 11 years ago when you wanted some accessibility to government websites.
It did. What happened here was that when I still had a lot of vision, I realized I could not really apply for jobs on the Canadian government websites. It was very, very challenging and very difficult. And I approached the Canadian government several times in my own little way at that time, and they weren't interested at the time. They felt that their websites were accessible, and we kept telling them, no, they're not accessible. And finally, after one incident where I applied for a job and couldn't access it in the right way, and then to be told, well, we don't think that you fit the bill, before they even looked at my credentials, I kind of thought, it's time here to do something. And during that time, I lost my great vision, and I figured it's time for me, if I want to help the kids of the future, and it has always been the kids of the future for me, you've got to make a better future for your kids. As Prince Harry of Britain once said, you got to leave the world a better place, and that's always been my mission. And so I decided, for better or for worse, I would go after the Canadian government, and I had a good team surrounding me. We launched a charter challenge in 2007. It wasn't easy. There were many sleepless nights, and don't think that the Canadian government were nice to me. They attacked me professionally and personally. But you had to expect that. You couldn't expect the government to just sit there and say, let's fix this because it's not good. No, they fought back and they fought hard. But my team and I fought harder. We were quite shocked when we got our landmark victory at the end of 2010. That was with the lower court of Canada. And then they took us to the Court of Appeal, and we won unanimously. Now, I would say today a lot of things have changed, but not quite enough. It's always a bit too slow. You want things to be better. And in 2014, I founded an organization called Barrier Free Canada, because I felt that it was time for Canada to adopt an Accessible Canada Act. It was the right time because election time had come around in 2015. Our organization launched a campaign. We helped to kickstart it. It took 4 or 5 years before we achieved what we wanted. The legislation was passed in 2019. It's been over a year now since that's been passed. And again, it's time for Canadians with disabilities to start pushing the government again to live up to its promises through the act that they passed. But this time, I'm not going to purposely participate in this. I would like to see others do it. It's time for others to step up to the plate while I rebrand myself.
The changing of the guard.
Definitely. It's time for the youngsters to move forward. It's their future.
Through some experiences I've had, life experiences, it's really neat when you find leaders who are willing to spend the time and put in the effort for something they themselves may not totally benefit from.
Right.
Like the work that you've done and all that would have been great if you had that when you first needed it.
That's right. It's not going to fully benefit me, but my gratification would be that it will benefit others coming behind me. And as I kept seeing on the TV today throughout the inauguration time, it's a bridge to possible. That phrase really resonated with me today.
Yeah, I was thinking of the word selflessness, where you're working for the good of the children, as you said, the kids coming up behind you. So March 1st, you're looking forward to that day where the rebranding of the webpage and all that, and it'll be all fresh and new.
I am, and that's when I will really start to circulate and post everywhere.
Now, coaching may look a little bit different at first. It might look like communication like we're doing right now.
It might. Coaching could take any form, and that's one thing that I will be offering, or my team and I will be offering. We can do it through Zoom, Skype, FaceTime, email, on the phone, anything like that.
You know, what I really like about what you're doing is it's a resource, as I mentioned early on. It's hard to find resources when you don't know what you don't know. I don't want to say that if you're really good at what you're doing, people are going to wean themselves off of you and you're going to move on to other people too. But people are going through vision loss quite a bit. There's always someone new to it. So the services you and your team are going to provide is awesome. It's really good for them to have access to that.
Thank you very much. I hope it works out.
And I want to thank John Panarese from Mac for the Blind for giving me a heads up. I saw you down there on Top Tech Tidbits. You're one of the first persons to join up on there and start advertising on there. And I was reading your stuff and I was saying, And then all of a sudden John sent me an email saying, I was working with a friend of mine and I think she'd be a great podcast interview, which he's totally right. Now, you actually went to John, Mac for the Blind, to gain some skills.
I did. I first started out with John. I was not an Apple person. I was a Windows person, and I was determined to sort of broaden my horizons. And John and I clicked from the word go. John has worked with me over the past almost 2 years through his coaching, mentoring, being a good friend to me, being a great sounding board to me. And we also had John in one of our town halls here in Canada to talk about technology. John helped me to get my Apple certification, professional certification.
Wow.
It's called an ACSP. Yeah. I had to learn voiceover. I had to learn to use my Mac, and I had to learn all about Apple technology in order to get this certification. And John walked the walk with me. He never left me. And now John and I are working extremely hard to offer coaching and training to those who need it. But what we have found is that within our own community, there are so many people offering the same thing. So John and I have decided to step out of the box and offer it to people with sight loss. John would be offering the Mac side of things, and then he would then come into the iOS side and work with me to offer it. And I'm hoping and praying that John and I can get something going.
Oh, that's really great. John's been around for ever since I remember. Yeah, I think when this pandemic hit, he was right in the right spot. He came on the Blind Abilities and he was just overwhelmed. He thought he'd start a couple classes and boom, it blew up. So he's really excited. So I'm glad you're hooking up with him because, he knows his stuff.
He's not just knowing his stuff. He's a decent, sound human being. He's an all-rounder, as I would call it. He's up there. He's one of the best I've ever had the privilege of working with. But he also cares about people, and that's important.
Well, he told me he does not suggest very many people, or he's never done it before. And so when I got his email, it was all explaining, I don't do this, but I met somebody that I want you to consider. It was like, okay, he eased me into it. And And then he had so much good things to say. And, after talking to you here, you're a well-rounded person too. I really appreciate him sending me your contact and having this opportunity to talk to you, because so many people are going to benefit from your experiences, your skills that you have, and you're willing to put them out there, because it takes quite a person to be a teacher, to listen and help out and find out what their needs are and help them. Good for what you're doing.
And I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity. I think what you're doing as well is terrific. I mean, you're spreading the word in a very unique and important way.
We're all doing our little passions and stuff, and I used to teach myself, so I know what it's like for you to meet people and see them succeed. It's good for you, Donna, and your team. And that's Donna Jodhan, Donna Jodhan.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity, Jeff. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Donna.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We'd like to thank Donna Jodhan for joining us on Blind Abilities today. You can find more about Donna on her website at www.donnajodhan.com. That's DonnaJodhan.com. And for more information about John Panarese, be sure to check out his website, macfortheblind.com. And from all of us here at Blind Abilities, through these challenging times, to you, your family, and friends, stay well, stay informed, and stay strong. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great day.
When we share
what we see through each other's eyes, we can then begin to bridge the gap between
the limited expectations
and the
realities
of
blind abilities.
The realities of blind abilities.
For more podcasts with a blindness perspective, check us out on the web at www.blindabilities.com, on Twitter at blindabilities. Download our app from the App Store, Blind Abilities, that's 2 words, or send us an email at info@blindabilities.com. Thanks for listening.